we're going. Right. Evening, everyone. It is Thursday, the 31st of March, nearly 1st of April. April Fool's Day, that's always fun. I have realised I haven't knocked down the thingy, what's it called? Brightness on my iPad, so let me just do that, and right, hopefully you won't get any glare from that. Right, so carrying on our kind of world whiskey run, I suppose we're going to call it, simply because that was the table that I was on in the Newcastle Whisky Festival. I'm kind of getting my mouth into Scandinavian style, because that's what we're going to cover in the next two. So the first one is this one, which is called Spirit of Veen, not Spirit of Hven, as some people will probably try and pronounce it when they've seen the name, but it's pronounced Veen. Veen is an island in the Strait of now, what was it? It's spelled Øresund, but it's probably Øresund Strait, which is between Denmark and Sweden, and is here. And this bottle is leaking, unfortunately, so I've got half of it over my fingers. So yeah, it's a tiny island. It's about 3 square miles, and there's only about between 300 and 400 people that live on this island. And Spirit of Veen is actually a hotel and restaurant and a spa with a distillery as well. So it's proper multitasking, a real kind of tourist attraction on an island that's not got a lot else. Veen means green island, and you can tell if you look at pictures of the island, it's very lush, and the distillery is trying to be kind of organic and as sustainable as possible. So a proportion of the barley that they use in making their whiskey and their other spirits, because they do a gin and a vodka and an aquavit, is sourced from the island. Everything is done on site, so from malting and distilling and bottling is done on site, so they're trying to be as sustainable as possible. Now, the master distiller is a guy called Henrik Molin, or Molin. We'll go for Henrik Molin. Now, he is an ex-chemist, and the distillery itself is quite sciencey. It's not pushing itself as like a romantic, traditional, kind of like a lot of Scotch do in terms of history and tradition and romance, and not a lot about what is actually involved in the production itself. Henrik is an ex-chemist, so he's very scientific, and a lot of analysis is done, and a lot of kind of looking at the microcosm and the science behind distilling and nosing and tasting and everything like that. And it was probably about an hour into doing the Whisky Festival, we had the bottles on the table, that somebody pointed out that the bottle, which looks like this, is a conical flask. And it was a real kind of like, oh yeah, moment where we realised that's why the bottle's that shape. Now, they do the sealing a bit like Maker's Mark, where they do the wax over the top of it, but obviously take that out of the equation, science. And it's a conical flask, so there's obviously harking back to his previous career. So it's relatively new distillery in terms of making whiskey. They launched what they called the 7 Stars in 2013, and essentially it's a limited edition of whiskies that are released every year for 7 years, and they are named after the 7 stars that make up the Ursa Major, which is otherwise known as the Plough. So I didn't take a note of which one this was, but I'm willing to bet it's the most recent one, which is, I believe, Fecta of the 7 stars. So I think this is the most recent one. So this is American and European oak. It's about 4 years old, is my guess. It doesn't have an age statement on it, but I think it's pretty young. A lot of the sort of newer distilleries, even if they've been around for a while, they seem to like having much younger whiskey. Now, this went down really, really, really well. Not just because of the bottle, but the reactions to this were excellent. There was a really good chemistry between the whiskey and the drinkers. Spent hours on that, sorry. So again, this is the first time for me trying it, but I'm hoping this is pretty good, because the reaction from the guests at the Newcastle Whisky Festival was very, very good indeed. There's a really nice sweetness on it. This was when this opened in 2008, because they were doing vodka and gin. It was a distillery, a micro-distillery. It was the third pot still distillery that opened in Sweden, and at the time it opened, it was also the smallest pot still distillery in the world, simply because it really is micro-distillery in every sense of the word. So there's a really nice sweetness on this, but there's also a touch of grassiness to it as well. Yeah, there's a really good combination of kind of fresh hay and not cut grass, but like long grass after a rain, along with a really nice underlying toffee fruitiness as well. There's a nice balance to that, and there's a little touch of smoke. Very, very delicate, not hugely obvious. There's a little touch of kind of smoke and sea salt, but it's only just there. Some really interesting stuff on the nose there. %, and more smokiness comes through. There's a distinctive peatiness to that. It's a nice, not quite black pepper smoke, but it's a bonfire smokiness. There's a touch of medicinal Islay vibe to it. Reminds me of Hven with the sweetness. It's not quite like a Bamor smokiness to it, but it's not that far off. It's got and it's strange because it's not obviously there on the nose. The sweetness and this freshness kicks through on the nose, but on the palate there's this lovely smokiness, and it's a very gentle smokiness. It's it would be one, if it was an Islay, I would be saying this is a really good introduction to Islay. There's a really nice sweetness to it. The smokiness is then lingering and giving you much more of a length of flavour on the finish. That's a very, very good whiskey indeed. That's excellent. I'm loving the nose. The nose is really, really interesting. It is intriguing, and if you like Islay whiskies, you're probably going to like that. I didn't think it was that peaty when people were trying it. People weren't really saying, "Oh wow, I wasn't expecting it to be peaty" or anything like that. But it's definitely there. The alcohol percentage is about bang on in terms of, I think it would probably be slightly too diluted if they went down to 40, but I wouldn't want it any higher. I certainly wouldn't want it at kind of a 48% or anything like that. That is a very, very good whiskey. There's some really nice complexity on it. It's still lingering even now. Yes, I definitely recommend that. Only problem with this is that they're not making a lot. It's a fair way away from, say, the UK. The last time I looked, Master of Malt online was selling it for about 120 quid, which is a bit steep, but bearing in mind how difficult it is to get hold of it and how little there is of it, I can kind of understand why. But I would certainly say if you're in Sweden or you're in Denmark and you're anywhere near that area, and you're near the Øresund Strait, definitely check it out. The hotel looks absolutely gorgeous. The restaurant looks pretty top notch as well. They have a whiskey bar there, and I would certainly have a few drams of this while you're there because it's very, very good indeed. I'd be intrigued to see what they do with aging. Obviously they have this 7 stars, so it's a range of limited editions over the next 7 years. 7 years from 2013. I hope it becomes successful enough that they can be able to put some stock aside and do some older versions, because I think this has got the potential. I don't think it would age particularly brilliantly past, say, a 12 or a 15. I think up to 10-year-old is about its limit, because there is delicacy in here that extra aging in oak would probably just tip it over the edge and it would wash out a little bit. But that is very, very pleasant indeed. I am pleasantly surprised by that. There's a very good balance. There's a lovely complexity to it. And yeah, I definitely recommend that 100%. top drawer that. He obviously knows his chemistry because he knows what he's doing with that. That's brilliant stuff. Right, I shall have a swill out, and then we shall just snip over the strait and take a little trip into Denmark. Right, see you in the next one. Cheers.